Hello, what's up? Welcome back. We have another Pioneer deck tech for feature in today's video, which we call this one as the Abzan Aristocrats. If you are not yet familiar with the term, Abzan is green, white, and black, and this was taken from a recent results of tournament in the MTG Melee website. It was one of the top 8 finishers, but unfortunately, I'm not sure if he got a good record, but nevertheless, we're going to feature this one and see how the term aristocrats is now being able as a staple archetype in the Pioneer format. So the list consists of 34 creatures, for instance, 4 planeswalkers and 21 lands. And with the sideboard also with that, I'm not sure if it's 12, it's supposed to be this one. This is supposed to be in the sideboard. Let me just adjust now. So this would be 15, sideboard, 31 creatures as for correction. But anyway, it goes to revolve around the deck that you're going to basically sacrifice your creatures and fill up your graveyard and do the triggers and the sacrifice activation by using this one, the Rally the Ancestors. So this is a 2 white, white, and X. Return X creature with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield and exile the creatures that will be in your next upkeep. And what I mean is that mostly of your creatures are basically given that they are just cheap to cast and revolves around 1 to cast and 2 to cast, and has several ways to activate the sacrifice ability, and one of which is the Wolf Strider. So this is a 3 to cast, 3/2 horror, originally from Terrors Beyond Death. At enters the battlefield, you will create a 0/1 white gold creature token, and then you will sacrifice another creature to scry 1. It has also the option to escape from your graveyard by exiling 4 other cards and paying 3 in black. So if it escapes, it goes with additional 2 plus counters on it. So what the benefit of sacrificing creatures is that you get to trigger this card. This is originally from Khans of Tarkir. Yes, this is the version about Battle for Zendikar. And this one, the ability that whenever Zulaport Cutthroat or another creature control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So that is basically your main way into which you will win out by sacrificing your creatures and having your opponents lose life in each of these triggers. Now, in the support of this deck, we have basically a lot of creature here options that we can use. We're going to start off with the 1-drops, the Pleasure Pad. So we have 4 copies of this. So this is just 1 green devoid. Whenever it dies, you will create a colorless Eldrazi style creature token that can be sacrificed to add colorless mana. So this is basically 2 sacrifice fodder for 1 card. So that is 4 copies in the deck. Next up is we have a copy of Haywire Might. So this was basically just a utility creature, but whenever it dies, you gain 2 life, and then you can basically pay 1 green, sacrifice it to exile to get non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. So next up is the 4 copies of Stitcher Supplier. So that's basically a 1 to cast 1/1. When it enters the battlefield or dies, build 3 cards. So the purpose here is to basically fill up your graveyard with these creatures, your creature cards, and one way to do that is through the Supplier. So it's also can be fathered to the sacrifice effect, in which you can also mill additional 3 cards. So making sure that we have be able to self-mill early on, we have 4 copies of that in the deck. Next up also is another option to have these triggers, is a copy of Cruel Celebrant. So this is a 2 to cast, 1/2, the same of that of the Zulaport Cutthroat. It has this ability that whenever Cruel Celebrant or another creature or planeswalker you control dies, each opponent lose life and you gain 1 life. Now for another instance that we have the option here is Elas Ilkor, Sadistic Pilgrim. This is from Dominaria United. This is again the same casting cost of that of the Cruel Celebrant, except that it's 2/2 and has death touch. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under control, you gain 1 life. Whenever another creature control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. It's quite a variance on that card. That's 1 copy. And next we have 4 copies of Fiend Artisan. It's a 2 cost 1/1. It gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard. So basically it becomes a 2-drop sort of a Tarmogoyf effect, and it gets bigger because of the super creatures that has reflected in your graveyard. And that's also this ability wherein you can be able to pay X and black or green Tap this creature and sacrifice another creature. Search library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less, put it on the battlefield, and then shuffle library. Activation only limits it to that of the sorcery speed. So that's not really a drawback here. You can basically self-mill yourself and have this one bigger, and you can basically attack with it in the early turns, wherein you can have to deal huge chunks of damage before you get to combo. So that is another option here. And also the tutor effect is very efficient to get off the combo piece that you want. For example, this one. So we have also the copy of the Priest of the Forgotten Gods. That is 4 copies. This is also another sacrifice fodder, but the option here is that you can be able to create or have it's a target players lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. So it's in a way that you will not only have them lose 1 life or lose life in the process, but also you may have them sacrifice their best threat or creature from their board. And the option also is that you can also add 2 mana black mana in instance and then draw a card as a benefit of this ability. So in another way, you can basically have a lot of options here that you can use to further to that of the Priest of the Forgotten Gods ability. Another option here that you can fill up your graveyard is Satyr Finder. It has the ability that you can reveal top 4 cards in the library and then put a land card from among them to your hand and put the rest in your graveyard. That's 4 copies. So again, the Cutthroat and the West Rider as your primary deck opponents that goes with the trigger of sacrificing and loving your opponents lose life on those triggers. Now for the Lone Planeswalker in the list, we have this copy of Tyvar, Jubilant Brawler from Prussia All-1. It's just a 3-cost 3/3 that you may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste. So you can notice here we have several creatures. For instance, we have Priest of Forgotten Gods, Fiend Artisan, that will need the top symbol, but because of the Tyvar's passive ability, those creatures entering the battlefield this turn can already activate those specific abilities. And that you can also have this +1 ability, loyalty, on top up to 1 target creature, and then also mail yourself by -2 mill 3 cards, and then you may return a creature card with 2 mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this is basically a good addition to the deck with several options that you can use to do with the self-mill, activate your other options of the creatures, and also have a double activation by +1 on the loyalty to have them on top. Now for the lands, it's basically composing that of the Abzan. So we have several mana fix here in the form of Blooming Marsh, Concealed Courtyard, Shocklands with Galley's Shrine and Overgrown Tomb, and also a lone copy of Plains, as well as Channel Lands and Temple Garden to fix the mana base. And for the sideboard, which is basically straightforward here, but we have also a few option cards in this build. So Duress again, of course, for control decks and maybe for combo decks, that you can take out their spells or discard their relevant threat from your hand before they can get to go with their combo. We have a copy of Search of Salvation, basically to protect you from Hexproof and have your permanents prevented damage from black and red sources. And 3 copies of Conquer Bloom. This is also sort of a utility creature because of its ability to proliferate by also destroying artifact enchantments for only 1 colorless mana. And for instance, you can also return this back to the battlefield with your Rallied Ancestors or your Tyvar, and also do another activation to that. If there are relevant enchantments or artifacts to be destroyed, then you can use instances wherein you can return this back to the battlefield and then use its ability once again. Now we have also 2 copies of Anicin Source. This is basically for graveyard shenanigans, since the format is probably littered with the Grisfang decks and also with that of the Arclight Phoenix. So this is the best sideboard against them to destroy or prevent their graveyard shenanigans. And also we have 3 copies of the Voice of Resurgence. I've seen this before back in the Celestia or Naya Aggro in its days in Ravnica, but this time he's being purpose of the sideboard card. Now that whenever an opponent casts a spell during your turn, or when Voice of Resurgence dies, it will create a token, elemental creature token with a power toughness equal to the number of creatures you control. So that also benefit in which they would try to counter out or cast a spell during your turn, you can get a bonus threat in the form of an elemental creature token. Next is also 2 copies of Collective Nightmare. This is also a new card from March of the Machines, but the purpose here is that it has Convoke, wherein you can basically tap your best creatures or any of the support creatures that you may have to have this one less in mana cost and do a threat of spot removals on a target creature gets -3/-3. So that's 2 copies in the deck. So that's pretty much it for the sideboard. It's pretty basic. You go against combo graveyards, against control, and also for counter spells, and against other aggro decks. It's also the same function. Now for the deck stats, it's pretty much very cheap with only 1.97 on the average. And color distribution, we have basically black and green as your main colors, and the white as a splash. But the color distribution for the producers are pretty much aligned to that number of cards of the specific colors. And last but not least, we also have 3 tokens here: Eldrazi Scion, Elemental from the Voice of Resurgence, and Goat from the Ghost Rider. So I guess that's about it for this deck tech, again for Abzan Aristocrats. If you've seen this one, or you are currently piloting this deck for MTGO, just let me know in the comments below how your observations were, and we can discuss it further, and for further other improvements that we may have in this build. Again guys, thank you for checking this one, and see you on the next video.